So for those who don't know, my name is Scott Pinsky. I'm the chair of the Marin Coalition, and I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. Obviously, a lot of familiar faces, but we have some new folks. So welcome, and we hope you come back and find this to be a worthwhile program. We're a Marin organization that's been around for, I think next year is our 50th anniversary, or the year after. Very, very soon, we'll be hitting 50. So that's kind of a big deal for us, and we've been putting on programs of this type for a long time, and hopefully adding to awareness and conversation here in Marin. So if you find this of value and you're new to us, you can go on our website and get on our email list, and we'll be happy to send you announcements of all future programs and hopefully keep you in the loop. The next program that we have, which we'd like to announce, is going to be January 17. That'll also be at noon, and that will be our election preview program with our all-star political team, Greg Brockbank, who's sitting way in the back. There's Greg, and Dick Spotswood from the Marin IJ. If you've never heard these two guys together, they're fairly epic, so you might want to consider coming to that one, January 17, and that'll be on the website for signups very soon. That's really the only business. Let me just jump into the program here and we can get started. You're here because you know that Marin County has numerous civic organizations that are designed to help educate our residents and our governing agencies. And these groups aim to bring about positive change by mobilizing individuals, leveraging resources, and advocating for issues that matter to the community. And today we're pleased to present a panel of leading individuals in 4 groups in this sphere: the League of Women Voters of Marin County, the Marin County Civil Grand Jurors Association, the Marin Conservation League, and the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers, COST. And I'm pretty sure that many of you sitting here are affiliated with at least one or more of those organizations. We're going to go one by one with our presenters and then do a little bit of a group discussion and have Q&A from all of you in the audience. So hold your questions, please, till the end, and we'll have time for that. Beginning, we'll be hearing from Deborah Haas, who is the foreperson of the 2021-22 Marin Civil Grand Jury and a member of the 2019-2020 Grand Jury. An attorney with experience in civil rights, immigration, and child advocacy issues. She was a permanent clerk for the Eastern District of the U.S. Federal Court in California and has served as an adjunct law professor in appellate advocacy. Prior to practicing law, Deborah worked for several years in investment banking. In addition to the grand jury, Deborah has volunteered with Marin court-appointed special advocates, guide dogs for the blind, and several local schools. So please welcome Deborah. I'm gonna do the introductions, I think, one at a time. That'll be better. And then as we go along, I'll introduce our next speaker. The other speakers, by the way, Terry Thomas from the Marin Conservation League, Ann Wakely from League of Women Voters, and Mimi Willard from COST. We're going to start with Deborah. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you, Marin Coalition, for having me. It's an honor to be here. For anyone who's been on the grand jury, we can't talk about it enough, so having an opportunity to talk about it is a pleasure. And it's also an honor to sit up here with some representatives of some of the best Marin civic organizations that we have. So thank you again for having me. Again, I was the foreperson of the previous term of the grand jury. And now I'm a board member of the Marin chapter of the California Grand Jurors Association. The mission of the association. Sorry, no, it's okay.
I gotta find the cursor. Okay, there we go.
Is to promote and enhance the Marin County civil grand jury process. So we have quite a few members here with us. If you are a member, can you go ahead and raise your hand in case people have questions? Yeah. Great, thank you. Thank you for coming. Our goal is to increase public awareness of the civil grand jury process, to recruit applicants to serve on the grand jury, and to provide local training for grand jurors in Marin. So let me ask a question here. Who has heard of the civil grand jury? Oh, this is a great crowd to speak to. Well, next I'm going to come to the question, why haven't you served yet? Next slide. Almost all of you know the answers to these, but let me quickly talk about the civil grand jury. It's pretty unique to California. The Constitution requires every county to impanel a civil grand jury every year to investigate local government entities and elected officials, and it serves as really a watchdog for local government. It is comprised of 19 citizen volunteers that spend a year of their life becoming experts in local government. It is not a criminal grand jury. Frequently, that's what people will think about when they hear about a grand jury. Criminal grand juries are impaneled. You would receive a summons like a regular jury, and those are to investigate potential criminal wrongdoing. The civil grand jury, on the other hand, is really meant to investigate local government matters. So the grand jury will gather every year, research topics of their own choosing or represented by citizens. They must release at least one report every year. Generally, the Marin grand jury releases closer to 7 to 9. And the report must include findings which are based on facts. These are found out through a confidential investigation. And the report also must include recommendations that are directed toward elected officials or local government entities. On the back table, we have the insert that came out in the IJ a few weeks ago that has a nice summary of this term's reports. Some of these reports include budget issues in the city of Novato, what the county is doing to support the aging population of Marin, and the backlog and delay of cases in the DA's office. So the Marin chapter of the Grand Jury Association is involved in promoting the grand jury. Some current events that we are working on is one, we are working to engage former civil grand jurors so they can continue to work on issues that were important to them. We're working on educating the public on prior topics and reports of the Marin grand jury. We're doing this through Marin Voice articles in the IJ, forums such as this. We're also looking to promote additional educational opportunities. Specifically, we're looking to create a course curriculum to be offered through the College of Marin Community Education or other providers of community education. And then our most important job is to recruit new applicants for the grand jury. Each year, we need 19 grand jurors and 11 alternates. Applications are accepted year-round, and interviews and the selection process occurs in April and May of each year. We also run informational sessions, generally between February and April. These are a deeper dive into the commitment and expectations of being on the grand jury. And these are advertised in the IJ, on our website, on the county website, and anywhere else that we can get the word out. And then applications are available at our website. They're available at the Marin County website if you just Google Marin County Grand Jury. There are some pamphlets on the tables that also indicate how to get to them. And I think if you're really interested, we have a couple of actual paper applications that you could take home with you today. On each table, again, is this flyer that will just give you a little more information and the websites. And that is our website. If you want to know anything more about what we do or the civil grand jury, I hope you'll go there. Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, moving along. Terry Thomas is the president of the Marin Conservation League and chair of its Parks and Open Space Committee. She is a natural resources manager, ecologist, and planner, and has worked in Crater Lake, Yosemite, and the Everglades National Parks. She served as Chief Natural Resources Management and Science, Chief of Natural Resources Management and Science at Golden Gate National Recreational Area, followed by a position as Director of Conservation Science and Research at the Presidio Trust. Terry has degrees in forestry and forest ecology and has served as a board member of Fire Safe Marin and as Director of Natural Resources and Climate Resiliency for the Conservation Corps of the North Bay. Please welcome Terry.
Well, I'm so pleased to be here and excited to present to you all a little bit about Marin Conservation League. I also just want to acknowledge that he mentioned I worked for CCNB, and my employer, Merrilee, is here today, which was a real surprise. And someone who has been president and chair of Open Space Committee for Marin Conservation League for decades, Nona Dennis, please raise your hand, Nona, is here today as well. And our brand new executive director as of what, 2 weeks, Kate? 2 weeks. Kate Schilbach is our new executive director of Marin Conservation League. So it's so great to see friends here as well. Well, they've given me 7 minutes to talk about the history, the mission, all the action items we're doing today, and how to join. So I'll just kind of jump right in.
Take 7.5.
7.5. Okay, good. I'll take it. So Marin Conservation League was founded in 1934 by 4 trailblazing women who really shaped Marin County. Carolyn Seeley Livermore, Sifa Evers, Portia Forbes, and Helen Van Fleet. And since then, and since then, it's been 89 years. We're going to be 90 years old next year. So 89 years of protecting Marin. It's a fabulous history to this organization. Now, why did these ladies, why were they so concerned? Why did they start this? And next slide, please. So the history of Marin Conservation League was that the Golden Gate Bridge was being built, and they worried that there was going to be such an increase in automobile traffic and privatization of public land that they felt like they had to do something. So they pulled together this group with a mission to preserve, protect, and enhance the natural assets of Marin County for all people. And they got started. And their early projects included working to add acres to Mount Tamalpais State Park, Drake's Bay Beach, Stinson Beach, and Muir Woods. But I have to tell you, I went to talk to Terra Linda High, that has an environmental program, and we were doing some field trips and everything about MCL. And one of the challenges for their teacher gave them was to look at our website and see what we'd done. And over half of the students, they all had to write something like, "Thank you, MCL, for doing this." Over half of them said, "Thank you for not allowing billboards in Marin County." That happened to be one of the things. So even though we're talking a lot about land here, there were a lot of other things in those early days that they really pushed for. And they continued the legacy that you anticipated. That next slide, that's great, by really playing a major role in preserving our stunning landscapes. We helped to preserve Samuel P. Taylor State Park, Tomales Bay, Angel Island, Point Reyes, Ullampally, Marin County Open Space, Ring Mountain, and we even helped in the waterways where we acted to prevent Bolinas Lagoon from becoming a harbor and prevented Richardson Bay from getting to be a landfill. So now our current mission, next slide, is very similar to the original mission. It's to preserve, protect, and enhance the natural assets of Marin in a changing environment. So we recently added, just within the last 5 years, I guess, the words "in a changing environment," and you can guess why, right? Climate change. So climate change really started to affect an awful lot of what everybody had to take into account when they're working with conservation. And we also noticed that especially with the pandemic, there was a lot of changes in visitor use, and it brought a lot more people to our open space. And that also created some thoughts about conservation and how we would approach that. Now, when I look at this mission, it doesn't say a whole lot about how we do our work, but our 6 guiding principles, I just love them. And they're a catch to me whenever I'm reviewing something. So how do these reply to our guiding principles? And our first is we have 6, I'm going to say 6 of them. Our first is to support nature first across all lands and waters. Our second is to act based on the best possible science. Third, to integrate climate change understanding into our work. And next slide. And then we want to do that in a manner that works for environmental justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, in a way where we use diverse approaches for mobilizing action, and in a way where we tirelessly advocate for the environment. So the way that we, a lot of groups have these kinds of role missions and guidelines. So we do have a specific role that's kind of been noted as well. And the role is to serve as both watchdogs and advocates through committees. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the committees in a little bit. The committees monitor a broad range of planning and land use issues countywide. And we're there to ensure that Marin's ecological values are maintained and restored. Our second role is to influence decision makers to ensure that the actions are consistent with a healthy environment. Okay, so we really focus on working on issues through committees. And right now we have 3 very active committees. The first committee is our Climate Action Working Group. And it serves as a forum, a regional forum really, for clean energy groups. And a lot of clean energy groups come to their meetings every month to listen to speakers about clean energy and climate change, and to take away a lot of interesting educational facts. There's a lot of learning that goes on there. And primarily what they're really active on at this moment is actively advocating for electrifying buildings. They're sending out letters, they're going to meetings, they're accomplishing it through a lot of county work as well. The second committee I'll talk to you about is Land Use, Transportation, and Water Committee. Sounds like 3 committees, right? And they do enough work for 3 committees. I mean, the broad range of things that MCL works on is pretty phenomenal. Our Land Use Committee is currently completing our new Marin Conservation League sustainable housing policy. Then once we establish a policy, we can go out and advocate for it. Our transportation group has been focusing on advocating for a Highway 37 alternative that reduces traffic, allows for sea level rise, and includes wetland restoration. And our water committee has been focusing on Marin Water District, a watchdog on their actions and also on their rate increases. And our third committee is Parks and Open Space Committee. And we've been working a lot with the Marin Water Recreation Planning program, which there's been a lot of public meetings on, and they're going to come out with a suggestion in December. And also we work with trails countywide and have been concerned about electric bikes countywide. We also participated in scoping for the Point Reyes Tamales Point plan, and will be commenting on their environmental assessment coming out in the spring. And most currently, we're working on a possibility to extend a water line to Muir Beach from Muir Woods, which would allow Muir Beach not to have to pump water from the creek and have a more sustainable water system for climate change and also for the creek. So that's my thank you. And as far as joining, this is our website. And the best thing to do would be to get onto our website and look at how to get involved, and please join. Also on that website is our phone number, and please call. We always have someone in the office. Kate and our wonderful office administrator, Martha, would be happy to help you with any questions that you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry. This formally yet, but we're working on a program for the spring, where we would have West Marin as the focus of the event. We've had that topic presented before. We had, you probably remember the Rebels with a Cause filmmakers and had a really, really amazing program with them a few years ago. And we want to revisit that topic with another speaker or speakers. And so watch for that, but I can't announce it yet because we don't have it confirmed. So that's on its way. Ann Wakely is the immediate past president of the League of Women Voters of Marin County and currently serves as board secretary. She's deeply involved in many aspects of the League's work on voter education and advocacy. She co-chairs the Education Libraries Committee and co-leads the Voter Service Candidate Forums team. She also serves with other League members on the collaborative support team for the Marin County Student Elections Ambassador Program. In her professional life, Ann was an academic researcher and educator. She holds a bachelor's and master's degree in developmental psychology and a PhD in early childhood special education from UC Berkeley and San Francisco State University Joint Doctoral Program. Please welcome Ann Wakely. You're fine.
Takes a minute. Thank you, Scott, and thank you so much for having me here today. I'm delighted to be here and so happy to have a chance to talk to you about the League of Women Voters, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I know that there are a number of members here in the room today. Would you raise your hands, League members? Look at this. Isn't that great? And I don't know if you all know that Kevin Haggerty is our new president. And so even though we are the League of Women Voters, I'm going to be saying women a lot today. We do like men and invite them to be part of our work. So for over 100 years, you can actually go to the next slide. For over 100 years, the League of Women Voters has been a nonpartisan grassroots political organization dedicated to empowering voters and defending democracy through education and advocacy. Our education activities include voter registration, providing information on voting and voting rights, election-related activities such as presentations on ballot propositions and candidate forums, which I know you all have either participated in or watched, and educating our members and the public on issues of interest to the community and to the League. Our advocacy activities include making recommendations to influence decision-making or policy through public support, including speaking out on issues, endorsing ballot measures, and joining coalitions to promote a cause or action. I want to stress again that we are nonpartisan, not bipartisan, nonpartisan. We advocate on issues, but we never support candidates or political parties. This is a decision that was made by the folks who founded the League, and it has really served the League well over the years. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is the founding board. You can tell it's not the current board because Kevin's not up there, right? So the League was founded in February of 1920. 6 months before the 19th Amendment was ratified. And the founding mothers were many of the same women who advocated for voting rights for women over generations, or they were that generation at that time. But Carrie Chapman Catt, who's pictured here down in the lower right hand, she thought that there would be a need for a nonpartisan organization to really educate these new voters on voting, how you do it. And so she founded that, and it's just been thriving ever since. The Marin County League was formed 16 years later in 1936, 2 years after the Marin Conservation League. And there is a very nice historical account of our league on our website. I invite you to go look at it, including some of the issues we worked on over the years. Okay, so these are our principles and mission. Our mission too is empower voters and defend democracy. We envision democracy where every person has the desire, the right, and the knowledge and competence to participate. We believe in the power of women to create a more perfect democracy, and that is not to say that we don't think men have an important part in this, but we are the League of Women Voters. We are fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and in practice. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about the organization of the League, because I know you're all familiar with the League, but you may not really know how we're organized, because we are organized from the national down to the local level. And it's really an important part of the way the League does work. It began as a national organization, but state and local chapters came on board very quickly. The League of Women Voters of the U.S. Supports 70 state and local leagues in 50 states. They focus primarily, in addition to supporting local and state leagues, on issues of national concern. The League of Women Voters of California provides leadership for the local leagues in the state and the regional leagues, and they focus primarily on statewide issues, as well as supporting the local leagues. The League of Women Voters of the Bay Area is made up of the 20 local leagues in the 9 Bay Area counties, and their focus is primarily on regional issues, especially environmental and transportation issues. And our league, the League of Women Voters of Marin County, focuses on local issues and actions, as well as regional, state, and national. We have around 180 members. And in case you're wondering how you can become a member if you aren't already, it's very easy. Anyone can join. Men have been welcome since 1974. So please don't think that because you're a man, we won't just love to have you, because we did just elect Kevin as our president. So memberships are $70 a year, a bargain. Student memberships are free. We love having student members. The easiest way to join is to go on our website at marinlwv.org. And when you join a league like ours, a local league, you become a member of the league at all levels. You're part of this. We're all part of the same organization with the same principles and the same purpose. And I just want to talk a little bit about this idea of speaking with one voice, because it's very important to the league. The work that we do must be consistent at all levels of the league's mission, values, and policy positions. The league has national, state, regional, and local policy positions, which are researched, reviewed, and arrived at by consensus of the membership. While details and specific applications are going to differ, they can't be contradictory. This makes for a generally consistent voice and a solid, well thought out base for our work. And these are the program priorities for the US League and the California League. This is kind of a mixture of them. Making democracy work is something we all are devoted to at all levels. And you also see we have climate change, housing and homelessness, criminal justice reform, and again, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a focus in all of our practices. At the local level, in the coming year, we are going to be focusing a lot on the making democracy work aspect of this, as it's an election year. We're going to be doing a lot of election-related and voting-related work. We also, though, will be continuing to advocate for local issues. We have subject committees that are comprised of folks who have particular expertise and particular interest. Right now, our active committees are justice, transportation, land use and housing, education and libraries. We don't have a climate change committee, though we wish we did. If anyone in this room is interested in being a part of our league and helping us with with the climate change issue, we would love to have you, so talk to me. You can go to the next. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be doing a lot of advocating for voting rights and election related activities in the next in the coming year. At the state and national level, these are people from the National League here, and I think this was when they were trying to get the voting rights, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed. I think that's what they were out picketing about. At the national and state level, there is a lot of lobbying, co-sponsoring legislation, and filing lawsuits to protect voting rights. We're fortunate to live in a state and county where efforts are toward making it easier to vote, not making it harder, so we don't have to directly face some of the issues that the folks in other states and counties have to. But still, there's still a role for us in voter education and voter advocacy. Right now, our Justice Committee and our Voter Education and Outreach Committee are working with community partners and with folks at the county, including the Elections Department, to provide information on voting rights and voter registration to previously incarcerated individuals, many of whom don't know that once they are released from prison, they can vote. As you know, last year we passed when you're on parole, you can vote. Well, I don't have time to say anything, but the state recently co-sponsored a couple of bills that are aimed at allowing folks who are serving prison terms to vote, and so you will be hearing more about that. Okay, you can go to the next slide. We have a very active voter outreach group. We do voter registration, voter education events all over the county. We work very closely with community partners who are really trusted messengers in communities throughout our county. We work closely with the Elections Department. I think this was an event we were doing in Marin City a couple of years ago, but we do stuff all the time. I mean, we try to get out there and talk to folks and make sure that people know they should be registered. They may need to re-register. They can check their voter registration. And this is what you need to know about voting, where you can vote, how you can vote. In Marin, roughly 90% of eligible voters are registered, but still there is need for voter education to get people to actually go to the polls. I want to tell you a little bit about a program that I'm just so proud of, the Student Elections Ambassador Program, which we do in collaboration with the Marin Elections Department and the Marin County Office of Education. This program, students, high school students and college students enroll in this program, and they learn how to register and pre-register their peers to vote and to provide information on voting. They then go out and do events. They can do events at their school. They do events in the community. They sometimes come to events that we're doing and work on those. We have one young woman who is actually going into elementary schools and doing presentations on how to vote, doing little mock elections. So we're trying to build up that program. I think we have about 36, 37 students right now in that program. And you're going to be seeing a lot of us next year, candidate forms, pros and cons, and all that good stuff that comes during the election year. We need you to join us and become involved. And I hope that some of you will come up to me and say, how can I help with candidate forms? Okay, next slide. I just want to show you this because it's so cute. This is something that some of our student elections ambassadors did at an event that was held at the Bon Air Shopping Center, the Heritage Day thing they do. We always have a table there. A lot of kids come to that, a lot of children. And so they created this little mock election between Anita Votes and Seymour Progress. And the children voted. I think Anita won. She's a little older and maybe more experienced. Anyway, it was really, it was great fun, and just shows how creative these young people are and how wonderful it is to get them involved when they're just starting out. Okay, next slide. And I just want to point, we do a lot of advocating for affordable housing. This is really something that has been extremely important in this county the last couple of years and will continue to be. And this is an example of a position, a policy position that we use to guide our work. This is the League of Women Voters of California's position on housing and homelessness. This is where our work is very grounded in this position. So next slide. Yeah, thank you. And so please contact me directly. Contact the League, go to our website, write us a note. I would love to hear from you. I would love to have everyone in this room join the League of Women Voters.
You are founder and president of the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers. Chartered financial analyst, Mamie contributes financial and budgetary expertise accumulated over 20 years as a nationally top-ranked financial analyst at major investment banks, including Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers. She graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Reed College with a degree in biology. She then pursued graduate studies in cellular physiology as a Churchill Scholar at the University of Cambridge, England, and as a graduate fellow at the Rockefeller University and Woods Hole Biological Lab. She later received her master's degree in American history from Yale University, focusing on the political press in the early American Republic and on the history of epidemics. History of epidemics, really? Wow, timely. Without further ado, Mamie Willard.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to talk with you today. So the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers, here we are. Next slide, please. You may have heard of us, but you may not know what it is we really do. We think we have a unique model. We are a nonpartisan, broad coalition of Marin tax and ratepayers. We focus on local issues. We believe that it is actually possible to get stuff done on the local level. We have a 6-member operating board. 3 of our directors are here today. Would you just stand up and show yourself, please? Doug Kelly, Chuck Brady, Kingston Cole, and Karsten Anderson. These are the guys who help make the key decisions and set the priorities and do the heavy lifting. And we're fortunate to have a lot of people out in the community who volunteer special skills to us, and we appreciate that. Next slide, please. So perception versus reality. Many people think that we're some kind of right-wing crazies. In fact, we pretty much span the political spectrum. About half of the people who are involved in our organization, including, among our 1,800 supporters, about half of them self-define as center, a quarter as more towards the right side of the spectrum, and the other quarter towards the left side of the spectrum. So this is unusual. In California and throughout the country, typically taxpayer organizations are, the arm of a political party. So next slide, please. So we're really proud of our team, and I'm not going to read to you all the different kinds of people we have, but I'll call out 2 in particular. We definitely need financial professionals, people who are able to look at numbers and figure out, what our governments are doing. And we also have been fortunate to have a number of people in our leadership and in our organization who have formerly been on the grand jury. And those are people who show an interest in investigating things, making recommendations, and then they get off the grand jury and some want to do something about it. So we like that. And the theme here is that essentially it's a bunch of people who are willing to put some skin in the game to seek solutions to local problems. Next slide, please. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we're a watchdog. we advocate, we educate, we collaborate a lot with local governments to try to come to compromise solutions, very unusual for a taxpayer organization, negotiate, and unfortunately, sometimes we have to litigate. So you see here a list of things down the left side of the page. These are our values, and our mission essentially is to make them a reality in Marin. Next slide. So, next slide. Okay, here we go. So we are a work in progress. We have really changed a lot, and we want to spend more time communicating how that has evolved and where we are today. We started out focusing on affordability in Marin and the notion that people were finding it increasingly difficult. And to bring some discipline to that, we early on developed what we call our sensible tax criteria. That's kind of our constitution, though it's a living constitution, it evolves a bit. That's on the green sheets of paper that I handed out to you. I don't have time to read it all. I hope maybe you'll take a look at it. But we encourage city councils, for example, and supervisors and other elected officials to read these and to consider them before they come up with a tax proposal, because we would rather work with them than fight them at the ballot box if they do something that violates our criteria. And I see Julie McMillan nodding in the back of the room. Sorry, you'll regret that, Julie. But actually, I think that brings us to this this compromise solution on the JPA wildfire tax, and I will leap ahead to that because this was a really good example of how our model works. And I'm going to give some credit also to Doug Kelly, who's in the room, who's an elected official. And Doug was, I think, the first proponent of the idea that a taxpayer group should actually occasionally endorse a tax, or more than occasionally, if it's necessary, and if it's fair and transparent, and all the other good things that were on the prior slide. And this really came to fruition with the proposal to launch the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority and fund it with a tax. And the county had developed a proposal, but the proposal had a couple of like drop dead elements as far as we were concerned. And so we were able to work with them to have them propose a parcel tax that wasn't based on 1 unit equals 1 unit. In other words, you pay the same amount if you're in a studio condo or you own Bowen Shopping Center. And they proposed a per square foot tax. So that got us halfway there. But there was another problem, which was that the language of the ballot measure said essentially draft ballot measure until repealed by voters, which is code for forever. And we strongly believe in our sensible tax criteria that every tax should have a sunset, and that the sunset should be keyed to the visible use of the funds. And we weren't getting anywhere with the county, so we went out to the various town councils, and they were kind of concerned too about turning over their taxing authority, the money that was potentially or future going to their own fire efforts, to the county and have it be forever, something that had never existed before. And so they came in with us to join hands and decline to join the JPA until these criteria were met. And once that proposal came in that direction, we endorsed the wildfire tax, and we like to believe that we're instrumental in it coming to fruition. So other things in our history here, we had an issue with the water district, which some of you may know. They had a rate structure that was based on the size of your meter, to a significant extent, of incoming pipe, as opposed to how much water you use, which is anti-conservation in addition to being unfair. We sued them, and we ultimately ended up in the latest rate cycle working out a compromise that was fair and legal, and as part of the new rate structure. So next slide, please. So I skipped over something in our history. We have two entities within our organization. We have our original Cost Classic, which is a 501c4, which can do a certain amount of advocacy. And then about a year after we first were founded, we figured out that turns out most of our work actually falls into the area of education and other things that fall into the rubric of a 501c3. So we also founded the Cost Foundation, which is a 501c3. It does accept tax deductible donations, and it allows us to do our educational work, which I won't go into all of it, but I'll give you a couple examples. And it does allow us to also have funds to use legal help when we think that our government is violating the law. So one of the most popular things that we do is every year we send out a county-wide e-blast. It's getting harder to do it because of mailing list issues, but maybe some of your other organizations can help us get the word out. And it tells people how to access different kinds of local tax exemptions and discounts, many of which people are unaware of and don't know that they would qualify for. For example, there are a lot of discounts on taxes for people who are, quote, low income, but the low income actually goes well up into what in Marin would be considered moderate income. And some of these people really could benefit from having a little bit of reduction of their taxes that are coming out of a tight budget. Another thing that we've recently innovated was in 2022, we started working with Dick Spotswood as an independent moderator of webinars that we do in election season. They're a selected handful, typically of the more high profile ones. So we have one coming up, for example, on January 10th for the Ross Valley supervisor seat, where all 4 candidates have committed to attend. We also will have one, I believe, in January for the congressional seat, currently occupied by Jared Huffman and being challenged by Chris Coulomb. And we're working on that date, but we have a commitment that they will participate, as will Dick. So next slide, please. Our current focus, things that I would want to point out to you are the following. The first one, which is very timely because there's a meeting tonight on this topic, the Tamalpais Union High School District is seeking to put on the March ballot a tax measure that will raise $1.04 billion from taxpayers. It is essentially is a $517 million bond plus interest that will exceed the amount of the bond principal. And we have concerns about the fairness, affordability, and necessity of a bond that large, a bond measure that large. And we have been consistently advocating for a more affordable and really a focused alternative that is slimmed down to what the district has labeled as their #1 priorities, their priority 1 must-do projects. Tonight, they will vote in their board meeting whether or not to put the ballot resolution on the March ballot. The second thing that we're working on, which we just kind of came out of the woodwork about today with an e-blast, we are looking very carefully at the refuse rates throughout the county, focusing initially on the Marin Sanitary Services franchisor group. And what we see throughout the county, not just at MSS franchise group, is that embedded in your refuse rates, in your garbage bill, is a pass-through to the agency that is overseeing that. So in the instance, for example, of the county, for me and county unincorporated, 23% of my bill goes back to the county, into the general fund. And we have some serious questions. We're working with a lawyer with whom we work on MOWD. Is this fair? Is this legal? So stay tuned. A third thing which I forgot to put on here, but I did put some petitions over by the table by the entry. We are also engaged in signature gathering for a fix to Prop 19. Prop 19 was passed, I believe, in 2020. And the net effect of this is that if your heir inherits your home, that person loses most of the protection of the tax basis. And the net effect of this, it was designed essentially to increase the number of sales of houses, and that's what's happening is that people are having to sell their houses. And there is a fix proposal. You have to sign a petition to help get it on the ballot, but that proposal would fix that aspect of Prop 19, which has some other good provisions, but we want to fix the problematic provision. And finally, not finally, but finally the ones I'm going to mention to you, we are continuing to work in the area of trying to protect the folks who have trouble appearing at in-person public meetings for their government. These are often people who are disabled, maybe immunocompromised, elderly people who don't drive at night, and also a lot of low-income people who have childcare and elder care.
Our apologies, but due to technical difficulties, we lost the video and audio for a period of time in this presentation, beginning at near the end of Mimi Willard's cost presentation, about the last 3 slides, and starting back up in the beginning of the question and answer period. Those slides will be available on the Coalition website. If you go to sprcoalition.org and go to past presentations, you'll see them there. Meanwhile, this video now picks up with the question and answer period.
People who receive this free information would donate, but a lot of them do. So we hope that you will both join us and donate. And there's a donate button on our website.
Of course there is. All right. Let me do one more and then we'll go to questions. But I'm curious about this. Some of you have alluded to this during your presentations, but you know, just take a minute or half a minute or something and give it thought. Each of your groups either advocates or educates or in some way analyzes an issue and then puts out information to the members and to the public with your point of view, your perspective. It's an action item for the public. It's an action item for elected officials. If it's the grand jury, you're putting out a report with recommendations. If it's the League of Women Voters, you're advocating a certain position. I guess what I'd like to hear is it working? What do you see as the impact or the net effect of your efforts? Basically, when you spend all this time and all this effort to present what you think needs to happen, do you find that people are listening?
Well, of course, right? It depends. I think that there are many times when they listen. We have agency colleagues, and we have a lot of access to expertise and electeds that really do listen to us. I think we have a voice that people want to listen to. And in general, when we make advocacy statements to an agency or on an issue, we have a lot of information to back it up. We have the science to back it up or the knowledge to back it up. And I think we're generally pretty deeply heard. That said, a lot of times it does get very frustrating because the decisions are already made and it's pretty hard to kind of make a dent in them. But in general, I think we are working.
Well, unfortunately, the grand jury only has the authority to do the investigation and issue the report with the recommendations. And there's no guarantee that those recommendations are taken up. But there have been some very rewarding reports in the last several years. This most recent term put out a report on the backlog in the Marin DA's office. And within a very short period of time, very significant sum of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, were dedicated by the Board of Supervisors to find out what was going on in that office and try and get that fixed. The Novato budget report, there have been things going on in Novato at a pretty brisk pace, so hopefully there will be some improvements up there. And then, of course, the wildfire agency of Marin, the recommendation for that agency and that tax was a result of a very significant report written by the grand jury. That report actually won Best Report of the Year for that year for the grand jury. And so having that agency come to fruition, funded by a tax, which is not easy to pass, was very rewarding. So the work is rewarding either way, but the Marin grand jury does a good job, and we're always happy to see the elected officials and the agencies take notice.
Well, when we advocate for something, we put a great deal of time and effort and thought into what position we're going to take, and we have to vote. We have to all agree, or enough of us agree on the board to take the position. I think we are listened to. We're not always game changers, but I think people do look to the league for honest input and review. And I think the league, if I may say this, being a part of it, is respected for being honest and transparent about how they come to advocate for something. I think it's most definitely worth it, what we do. I think it's really important, and I think our education efforts around issues, whether or not you agree with the position we take, can really be helpful to people in making their own decisions.
I want to start just by thanking Deborah for her organization's instrumental role in the existence of the wildfire JP. So without that, might not have been. But as far as how cost does things, we pursue issues or projects based on fact-based research and advocacy. And when it comes to dealing with a public agency that wants to get something done and that overlaps into our sphere of interest, there are essentially three routes for us. The preferred one, as I mentioned before, is we prefer to collaborate and work together towards a consensus solution. But I think our ability to get that done is strengthened somewhat by the fact that we have a proven history of success at the ballot box and with legal challenges. So I think it's good. We prefer option one, but there's always option two and option three.
Well, I have to say, we're going to get to audience Q&A, but I can't think of better spokespeople for the groups that you guys represent, and I just want to say that for myself personally, this has been very, very edifying. So, and last thing is, we're a 501c3 also. Marin Coalition, so you can donate on our website if you see fit to do so. All right, let's hear from the audience. I'm going to have to share the mic, so go ahead and scream it up, and I'll repeat it for the crowd. Greg.
I don't know if you'll have to repeat it.
I think not.
I have a quick clarification question for grand jury person.
Yes.
First of all, what you've been doing for decades is wonderful, not just because it's required by law. And we all should do what I do, is take it out of the IJ and put it on your coffee table. We all can read them all, but I fear too few do. Very good reputation. But there's one thing that has always bothered me and nobody's ever answered, and it kind of violates the transparency provisions of good government groups like the League of Women Voters and COST, is everything's so secretive. We can't tell, and to be elected officials when we're visited by you, we can't tell anyone that we've been visited by the grand jury or list any of the names. And when it just seems so secretive, why? It mustn't be that way. I realize personalities get involved, everybody has their own. The truth is, 99%, I think the grand jurors are anonymous. That's a good thing, probably.
Well, thank you for that question. The California Constitution, the statutes that define the role of the civil grand jury requires confidentiality. So the grand jury has tremendous investigative powers. It has the subpoena power. Anyone in the state of California that the grand jury thinks has information relevant to an investigation can be subpoenaed. But we try not to use that. And the way that we get people to talk to us and to tell us what is really going on is that we take that confidentiality pledge very seriously and extend it to not telling people that they have talked with us, so that they don't even say I'm going to talk to the grand jury, let alone what they told the grand jury. So that's really part of the statute. In terms of who the grand jurors are, the grand jurors are all public. If you go to the Marin County Grand Jury website, there's a nice picture of them with their names under it. And you can get their names from the county if you're interested. But grand jurors tend to keep a low profile one because of the confidentiality, but also because it's about, it speaks to the report. The only thing the grand jury can ever say about what they have done during that year is that public report, that published report. If you want to know more about it, I highly recommend you apply for the grand jury. And then you'll find out everything that goes on in the room.
Mimi has a question.
Oh, no,
Oh, you have a comment.
I think Greg mentioned cost in his question. First of all, regarding confidentiality or secretiveness, if we have just a huge network of people that we're talking with all the time. Many of you in this room are nodding. And if someone tells us something in confidence, it stays in confidence. But that's often how we come upon an issue that something needs to be looked at, or find the piece of information that confirms that it was worth looking at. That said, everything else that wasn't strictly confidential is a pretty open book, and to the extent to which people don't know about it, either you're not on our mailing list, or we're not mailing enough stuff on our mailing list. But we're trying.
That's why I was complimenting you about your support for transparency, and I hope you didn't mind being called a good government group like the League of Women Voters. I said you don't like that.
All right, we have a question from Alan.
Yes, a question for the League of Women Voters. You advocate good government and push for actions that advocate good government. And the question is that we're now entering a kind of strange situation here in this next election cycle, in which we have a likely major candidate for one of the major parties advocating actions which are contravening the concept of good government and representative democracy. So how do you deal with those sets of issues without getting directly involved in the election process itself?
Guess we can kind of guess who you're talking about.
What a great question. Well, it is a strange time. We're living in strange times. And we still cannot get involved in supporting or not supporting a candidate. We just can't do that. We can speak loudly on issues, which may, in fact, to some people give the impression that we are partisan. But we are sticking to our values and our principles and our policy positions, and those haven't changed. The political situation has changed, not the League of Women Voters. Does that?
Pro-democracy.
We are defending democracy and empowering voters. Yes.
Okay, other questions? I've got a few myself if you don't, but anybody from the audience? All right, go ahead.
This is for the civil grand jury. My sense is that the civil grand jury has had a lot more success than most of us know about. And I wonder if on the website, there might be some way of listing things, not just the MWPA, but the other things that resulted in the recommendations being taken. I'd like to mention just one on the same grand jury that recommended the MWPA. There was one that recommended an agency, a JPA, the Telecommunications Authority, to go out of business since they really had no purpose. Interestingly enough, every board member of that JPA poo-pooed our recommendation. Almost exactly 1 year later, it went out of business. So we were delayed, but it made it.
I think it is a great idea to highlight the successes of the grand jury more, particularly since often they don't happen right away. Often it takes some years. A couple of years ago, we released a report on building electrification, and slowly the municipalities of Marin have been taking it up and moving that direction, and other organizations are working on it. As I said, one of the goals of the association right now is to engage former members to continue to educate the residents of Marin about the work and the issues of the grand jury. But I agree, a lot of work goes into that year, and it shouldn't be over just because the term is up, because the issues are still there. And I think some of our older organizations here can talk about issues that in Marin, they just come around and around and around.
I have a question that focuses on the Marin Conservation League. So for Terry initially, but some of the rest of you may have a similar situation. So your group is promoting policies or positions for the public good, as you perceive it to be. And, you know, many of us might not argue that that's a correct perception of the public good, but then there might be someone coming along and saying, well, no, the public good is actually something different. So if the position of your group is, let's withhold development in this area and maintain, you know, a section of the county as undeveloped, that's the public good in our view. Some other group, you might call them YIMBYs or whatever you want to call them, might come along and say, well, no, the public good is build more housing and use this dead, empty space for people to live. So I guess I'm just curious how you, you know, whether that's become an issue. Obviously, housing and development is a hot button issue over the last 10 years or maybe more. How has that affected, if it has affected your approach to these issues, and then anybody else who's had similar discussions?
Sure. Well, that's a great question. Yeah, the way that we look at the natural assets of Marin is all amongst all those things, and development and whatever might be happening in Marin County, and figuring out how best to do that and preserve the environmental health or to preserve our natural assets. And since you mentioned housing, our new housing policy, which hasn't been passed by the board yet, but it's just so amazing because it really focuses on how you can have housing developed in Marin County, additional housing, and be the most sensitive to natural assets, to make sure that they're in a way that you don't have to use a lot of carbon emissions. So it's a set of principles that says, as you're looking at housing, these are the types of things you should be looking at when applying, you know, like go up instead of out, or make sure that you preserve open space around the development and parks in the center so that people can have a better quality of life regarding their natural assets. So things that you would think about in your community that would make it better living situation because you're closer to nature. That's kind of the approaches that we've been taking.
And has there been a reaction from some of the pro development groups?
Well, yeah, there always is. In fact, we have. Do you want to say something, Nuna? Can you grab it? Can she comment? She's our
Oh, sure.
I can stand.
Can you- I'm trapped here.
I got it. A couple of words. I guess underscoring the positions of the Marin Conservation League is the fact that the environment underscores human life. I mean, that's, of course, at its most basic. Human health, human survival really depends upon how the natural environment functions. So it goes beyond just these amenities. It's nice to have open space. It's nice to have wildlife. It's nice to have plants. In fact, they underscore human health. In the Bay Area, just the Bay Area alone, if we look at what might have happened to the Bay, what did happen to the Bay, 90% of the salt marshes, which support air quality, which support many aspects of human health, would be gone if we were not reversing that. So we chipped away, and at some point we say, stop, we're not chipping away anymore. These are fundamental to human survival.
Can we get that mic? All right. Thank you. We're gonna get another microphone, I promise. All right, I think we have to wrap it. We're at our time limit, so I want to thank our panelists one more time for an amazing presentation. And I don't know, every time I hear this kind of information, I'm thinking, gosh, I wish we could just get everybody here to hear this, but we're glad that you heard it, and we thank you for coming and participating. I want to thank Kevin Haggerty and Pat Randolph for helping put this program together today, and thank you. And Alan Shavitz for running the audiovisual side of our event. Once again, Greg Brockbank and Dick Spotswood coming on January 17, and hope many of you can make it then. And keep in touch with us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for coming.